Hi guys, welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. Today guys, I'm going to be reviewing Boosh, the Judas Blossom by Stephen Aryan. This is book one of the Falcon and the Nightingale, which is a new historical fantasy trilogy, and this is book one. And I am very excited that I read this. I was sent an early copy by the publisher, Angry Robot, so thank you very much, in exchange for an honest review. And I will honestly say that I was really pleasantly surprised about this book. So if you saw my TBR of last month, I was excited to read this, but the Mongols are not really my historical bailiwick. Like, I like historical fiction, and I like ancient history, and I like Napoleonic history, and I like various periods through history. But the Mongols have never really been like the 13th century anything. Like, even the Romans in the 13th century. Like, the 13th century is just not, it just has never been a super interesting period to me. However, my recent studies with ancient Greece and its interaction with Persia and Alexander the Great and the whole Persian area kind of was my gateway into this, because this is the Mongols have basically conquered Persia and are in the process of taking over these other Middle Eastern states, Iraq, Syria, heading towards Egypt. They're going after Jerusalem, etc., etc. And so right off the bat, this book did what good historical fiction and historical fantasy should do, and that is make you more interested in learning about the period. After reading this, I want to know more about the Mongols, and I've never said that. Like, I've never said, you know what, I'm going to read about Genghis Khan. I'm so sick of hearing about people talking about Genghis Khan, but now I want to know. So, without wasting any more time, let's get down to business. Let's talk about the Judas Blossom. So this book takes place in 1260, I think, in the several different khanates that have formed. I think there's 4 khanates, because we're in basically the generation after Genghis, so it's his grandchildren. And the khanate that we deal with the most is the Ilkhanate, and this is led by one of Genghis's grandsons, Hulagu, and he is the brother of the Great Khan, which I'm not really sure I understood it. There's the Ilkhanate, there's the Great Khanate, there's the Golden Horde, and then there's another one. And I think the Great Khan is over all of them, and then there's Khans in charge of each Khanate, and it was Genghis, and then I forget who it was after Genghis, but then it was Mongke, who is Hulagu's oldest brother, and then the other brothers are, and then there's a cousin, whatever. Regardless. And they've conquered most of Persia, and the Ilkhanate is expanding because it's the one that is furthest southwest. And yeah, and that is the historical period that we are in. And in this book, I knew there were 4 POVs, because it says on the back of the book, there's 4 POVs. We've got Temujin, who is one of Hulagu's sons, and he's overweight and doesn't want to be a soldier, and he just wants to like find something else to do. And his dad is disappointed in him because he's not a soldier or a warrior, and he's useless. And then we have Kaivan, is a Persian whose city and country was destroyed, taken over by the Mongols, and he swears revenge and then finds himself an opportunity to work within Hulagu's infrastructure as a soldier. And so he's going to try to, affect the Mongol rule from the inside. And then we've got Kokochin, who is a Mongol princess who is from a Mongol tribe that was destroyed by Genghis or by the Mongols. It's just like a minor Mongol tribe. Like, her homeland was destroyed and all of her people were killed, and she was taken as a prisoner, and she's given to Hulagu as one of his many wives or whatever. Then we have Hulagu himself. The Hulagu chapters are really what tie all this together. This was the inspiration, because Hulagu represents the Mongols. He's the Mongols, and he's the one that's trying to expand the Mongol rule. But all 3 of these other POVs are in their own way anti-Hulagu. So they're kind of pulling at the threads and picking things apart, and they'll mess stuff up for Hulagu, and he has no idea how it messed up, and he's just enraged about it and, blame it on someone else. I really like that we have that perspective from that we have the Mongol conqueror perspective while having all of these oppositional perspectives as well. And then there's another POV, and I'll talk about that one in a minute. This book, it took me just a minute to get into, but it really only took 1 chapter of each each POV, kind of getting your bearings, figuring out who's doing what, like as someone who is not familiar with the time period or with the Mongol terminology, it took me a minute to kind of get there. But it's like the second or third Hulagu chapter where he goes and he meets with his brothers, and they have to have this big decision about the future of the Khanate. And that is when I was sold, because we have these bloodthirsty conquerors. We've got Hulagu, Kublai Khan, who you all know, like if you play Ghost of Tsushima, he's the one that invaded Tsushima, and the other brother. And Aryan just made these Mongol warlords likable in a way. Like they're just brothers, and they're trying to carry on their grandfather's legacy, and this is what they think is the destiny of the Mongol people. It's to unite the entire world under a single rule, and that because that was Genghis's great dream, and they're trying to fulfill that. And I really liked the dynamic between the brothers and how human they feel in that scene. And it's really at that point that I was sold. And then further, it just solidified it when there was a chapter of POVs called The 12. And I didn't know what that was. But the 12 are these 12 women who go by numbers, 1 through 12. Like 12 can only sign. It can't talk, has to sign. And 1 is in charge, that kind of thing. And while I was reading it, I was just instantly reminded of, I've been playing, if you watch my channel any period of time, you know that I love the Trails of series. And the 12, just the first meeting of them, reminded me of the Ouroboros meeting of the Angwes, where you have these faceless, floating balls of light, and they're all talking to the Grandmaster, and no one who knows who that is, and they're plotting the next Ouroboros phantasmal blaze plan. And I got super Ouroboros Angwes vibes in that chapter. And from that moment on, I was like, okay, let's go, let's roll it. I liked all of the POVs. Zara was talking about that, how in multi-POVs, there's often POVs that you don't like. And there is one that I liked slightly less than the other ones. But there was no POV that came up that I was like, I don't want to read this one at all. And this is because the characters they're just really well done. Aryan has a prose style that is very straightforward. It's not overly descriptive. It's In the things, the blurbs in the front of the books, Aryan gets compared a lot to Gemmel, and I've only read one Gemmel, and it's Lion of Macedon, and I hated it. But that's just because of the massive fantastical liberties that are taken with history there, and I didn't know what I was getting into, and I didn't like it. But one thing I love about Gemmel is when Gemmel does historical fiction or historical fantasy, he doesn't, I don't know the exact weight of every single piece of equipment, and he doesn't get bogged down in the absolute realistic details of every single aspect of this time period. And I like that. It's just enough, it's evocative enough to where you know what's happening, you know where you are, and you feel like you're in this time period, even without every single description of the material, of the construction of everything, of all those little minute details that, hardcore historians know, like from the inside out, that just, if you're not interested in that stuff, it just becomes a barrier to entry. Certainly with anybody who wants to write historical fiction. And so Aryan writes the same way here, to where we feel like we're in the 13th century, we feel like we're in Persia, we're with the Mongols. I know about Mongol society, I know about Persian society, I know about, the towns, I know all of these things without getting bogged down in the minutia, and I really, really enjoyed that. It makes the story really flow at a very brisk clip, so it does not drag in any places. I don't think the book drags at all. And please note, this is a historical fantasy. It's not historical fiction. There is magic in here, but for the large portion, for the lion's share of this first book, the magic is almost non-existent. There's very, very little. I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot more of the magic in book 2, and this is, I actually am ambivalent on how I'm going to feel about having more magic, because I was really enjoying just the historical fiction aspect of the story without any of the magic, though the way the magic is used in this book, I actually really liked. It was used sparingly, and I thought it was appropriate, and it didn't, ruin it for me, because the thing with magic is always, how does, especially magic in war, how does that change like warfare. Like, why don't they just have a mage come out and just like, wipe everything out? And so I think it was handled really well in here. I am curious to see what I think of, if I am right about the heightened use of magic in book 2, if I like that less. I don't know, but I'm excited to see. So what I love about these characters is every single one of these characters has a very clear motivation with what they want. For Temujin at the beginning, he wants his dad to be proud of him. Kaivan, gonna kill Hulagu. Hulagu, expand the Ilkhanate. Kokochin, that it changes. Each one of them has this clear goal, and I love how Aryan here explores the concept of sacrifice. I don't like saying the words morally gray characters, because this doesn't mean anything anymore. What it really means is just nuanced. I like that no one's hands are clean in this story. There's a lot of, the big philosophical questions. Is it okay to do this to then save? Yeah, can you sacrifice this few amount of people to save a way bigger amount of people? What would you do? How far would you go to fulfill the goal of freeing your people, of bringing down the Mongol hordes? And so all of these people, like Hulagu, like, what are the lengths that he will go to expand the Ilkhanate? Like, does the dream of Genghis, does it trump even family? For all the people who are working against the rule of the Mongols from the inside, what will that take? Patience versus red-hot revenge. The idea of playing the long game, of death by 1,000 cuts, versus just killing, for example, Hulagu. They'll just replace him. So as all of the characters struggle with how to best go about the thing that they want the most, it's really, really good. Like, it's very clear. That's one of the things I really like about this book, is how clear and how brisk it is. And it is a lean book without any fat. Another thing I really love about this book is the politicking, is like I was saying before, the things that people have to do for the greater good. All of the backstabbing about how empires work, basically. So empires, if they're formed by this one powerful, charismatic, or really brilliant war leader, and then they die. And then now there's not one person uniting everything, because everyone was behind this person, so it separates. And then how those factions end up fighting. This is the same thing that happened with the Diadochi, the successors, after Alexander the Great. They conquered all of Persia under Alexander. He dies, and his successors divide up the empire, and they're going to just rule it. But before long, they're at each other's throats, and now they're fighting each other, and there's just fractious warfare. And so we see some of that here, is how the cracks that form when multiple people are in charge of ruling an empire, because the people in charge tend to have egos of their own, and that arrogance breeds, like, well, why should we listen to you? Like, I'm the best, like, screw you, and all that stuff. So yeah, I love that. I love that he shows the kind of squabbling, how today's ally can be tomorrow's enemy. I love how he shows the different ways that an empire can be rotted from the inside by, taking out an admin there, or replacing a guard here, and just finding sympathizers that you can put in play to call on later. I love that the Mongol women, the wives of the Khans and the generals, are really kind of in charge of running things while their husbands are gone. Empress Guyak is terrifying, but she's the one that keeps kind of Tabriz, the capital city. She's the one that keeps everything in order, that makes sure all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And seeing her motivations, everything that she does is to make sure that her husband can fulfill his goal for the proper continuation of the Mongol rule. So she's terrifying also. I love that we see the historical course that empires take. We've got the Mongols, who were a mobile people, a nomadic people, who, and then they look at these big cities that they've settled down. They've had to find a place for central governance, and it's just like, civilization just assimilates. It just grabs you and turns you into a city slicker. And so we see the Mongols dealing with, the burdens of running an empire rather than just conquest, because that was Alexander's problem, as Alexander conquered and left no administration in place. So we see the Mongols dealing with the civil administration that's been put place in all of these various places as they continue to expand their borders. Another word on the leanness of this, time is skipped when it needs to. This is in many of the sieges. Like, there's several sieges in the book, and yet they're not all. We don't sit at all of them and watch all of them. It just says, oh, and there was a siege, and then that city fell, and here's what's happening now. Because we've already seen the siege, we've already seen what happens when they take the siege. There was nothing extra that needed to be told here, so he skips it. Large swaths of time are skipped. Like traveling. So we're not going to watch them travel and eat and all that dumb crap, and see what stupid inns they stay at, and packing up camp, and lifting camp. And there are books that have that in it that I like. K.J. Parker is all about that logistical minutia. That is not the story that's being told here. We are learning about the Ilkhanate expanding, its enemies both foreign and domestic, and how all the people are dealing with that. It deals with themes of loyalty to your people, to your city, to your country, to your general, to your family. The idea of assimilation, about how whether your life changes appreciably if you're just a regular person, is your life any different under the Mongols than it was under the previous regime? It's about the extermination of people and of their identity, and how you try to keep that alive. And if you're the last one, is there any point in even fighting for that, or should you just embrace your new homeland? We've got themes of revenge, of imperialism, of explorations of power and what power really means. Is there the different kinds of power? There's the iron fist and the conquest of the military, but also the behind the scenes power, the power of the Mongol women, the power of the generals, the power of the family, the power of the administrators. It's just like, I just couldn't stop reading to know what opposition that the characters were going to throw in the way of the proliferation of Mongol rule, and how that was going to be dealt with. And it just kept ratcheting up, and I read the last 100 pages in a single sitting, because it just did not let up. Relentless. And then it ended, and I'm like, oh. And I did not see where it was going to end up. It ended up in a different place than I thought it was going to. There's only one thing that I actively disliked, and it was at the very end. And it has to do with just a trope. There is a type of character that does a very specific thing in very specific situations, and that exact thing happened. And I was like, no. It was still really, it is such a small thing that no one will care about except me. No one will care about except me. And it did not ruin my enjoyment of the book at all, because it's literally in the last 10 pages. So, but I was like, oh, no, no, why are you doing that? At any rate, this book was excellent. I was really pleasantly surprised. This was my first book by Stephen Aryan that I've read. And it will not be my last. I am very excited for book 2, which I hope will come out next year as well. I cannot recommend this book enough if you like historical fiction, and I mean, if you like the kind of style that Gemmell writes in, definitely read this. If you like the Mongols, freaking read this book. If you've already exhausted yourself on the Eagledon series, which I'm going to read at some point now for sure. This book is out on July 11th. Please understand that pre-orders and the first 2 days of sales for books are super important, because not everybody is going to, raise $42 million on, day one of a book, because not everyone is freaking Brandon Sanderson. So, if this interests you at all, absolutely go pre-order that book. And the freaking cover. Look at the cover, guys. Like, that cover's awesome. So you should buy this book, read it, post about it, etc., etc. Again, thank you so much to the author and to the publisher for the early copy. And I hope you guys enjoy the Judas Blossom when it comes out as much as I did. And let me know who your favorite was. I think my favorite was Kaivan, but I really like Hulagu. Temujin is freaking weird now. And Kokochin, whatever, Kokochin. So, guys, that is it for me for today. Have you read the Judas Blossom? And if you have, tell me if you liked it. Who was your favorite character down below? And if you read it later, tell me who your favorite character is down below. That's all for me for today. As always, information about my Patreon and Discord is down in the description. And I'll see you next time, guys.